Jeff Slauson here from 19 News Now at the 19 News Digital Desk. We're going to be bringing you live to an update from the Macedonia chemical explosion that saw multiple people injured. Let's take you there live right now. You can see behind those two people there the containers and the trucks that had those chemicals in them. We zoomed in a couple of seconds ago where you could really see the brakes in those trucks and the brakes in the tankers as well. What we know is that one of the victims has life-threatening injuries. This happened at Royal Chemical Wednesday morning. A pretty scary scene, blocking off certain parts in certain areas at about 11:40 this morning. According to reports, this happened while workers were in the process of loading a truck outside the building that involved the chemical sodium hydroxide. The impact of the explosion ripped a tanker truck in half. That is what we saw a little bit earlier, and half of the tanker actually ended up inside the building, another half outside. Let's go live.
In terms of air quality, for people that live in the community or traveling through the community, it is completely safe. The waterways have not been affected, and that is completely safe to drink the water and breathe the air. So I want to make sure everyone knows that we are safe in terms of that right now.
And what's the latest with the cleanup here, and any more with the investigation that you know of?
All ongoing right now. We don't have a lot of information. We're gathering that all, so we won't have that for some time.
What are we seeing here? Is that parts of the truck?
You're seeing the tanker that had exploded.
Any updates on the 3 people that were injured? I know one was still being evaluated when we last talked.
From the last report I had, that they're all going to be okay. So that's the positive news. Obviously, we want to hear that everyone's going to be all right, and I'm very thankful to hear that.
As far as when you're anticipating little things like these cars I see covered with all sorts of debris, when do you think that cars, the inside of this facility, will be able to be used again?
That could be quite some time. Again, it's kind of a crapshoot at this point. We don't know until they get into it, start investigating it, cleaning it up. There's a process that goes along with all that through the EPA and the cleanup people, so we don't really have that estimation right now, but I'm sure we'll know that in the coming days.
Do you know when the road will be back open? Any estimate?
The road will probably be back open here within a few hours, I would think.
So today?
Yes, today.
Are these cars here because the people left them, or they can't drive them because of the chemical?
They cannot drive those vehicles right now. That was in the blast zone. That chemical that's on those vehicles, we don't want anyone touching that. Part of the cleanup will be getting that material off of those vehicles.
You mentioned that we've been told a couple of times to stay out of the grass. Does that mean that there's still this chemical component even in the grass, this surrounding area?
That's kind of the blast zone. You can see the discoloration in it. So yeah, we don't want to touch that.
As far as the creek, I know that you were bringing in these big trucks. It looked like they were filled with dirt. Was that part of trying to hold that contamination in one area?
Yeah, the dirt's to keep the contaminants contained in that area so it didn't spread any further. It is not in the waterways. I want to say that very clearly. It is not in the waterways.
Okay.
Chief, did you have any update?
No, not really. Mayor pretty much covered it. A vital surge has been contracted by the company to do all the cleanup. The plan has been approved by the EPA, and it will take at least a week to get everything cleaned up. The grass you mentioned earlier, all that soil will be excavated and disposed of as hazardous waste. Right now it's safe. No firefighters, no first responders are injured, just the initial 3, which is always a good thing. And we're moving forward, and the investigation will continue.
This company won't be open for a week? They won't be able to open for a week?
I can't say they won't be open for a week. This part of the operation, that part of the building will not be usable for approximately a week.
We're seeing this explosion up close for the first time today. You mentioned just how far into the building it goes. Just describe a little bit the scene going into the building for us.
At the time of the catastrophic failure of the tanker, what you don't see of the tanker, the remaining parts of it are in the building approximately 10 feet from the south wall. So, guesstimating 60, 70 feet it traveled from the force of the explosion.
You know, when you're working on something like this, obviously you think firefighters, you think fires, right? But you guys obviously respond to all sorts of calls. So when you're responding to something like this, where you're in hazmat gear, you're having to clean off, make sure people aren't getting burned, just describe some of the challenges that your firefighters were contending with today.
Well, there was no fire. There was an explosion, but there was no flame, as you would think of fire. Initially, you don't know what it is. And, different chemicals, different reactions. That's our first challenge we have to overcome. Summit County Hazmat was here. They got here quickly, and they're the ones that took over analyzing, checking vehicles, and we really just secured the scene and cared for the injured.
Did you say that it went in, the part of the truck went into the building and went in right there?
Yes. Went right in the dock door. If you go further north, you'll see that it was right in front of a dock door and went through that door and into the building.
So we're only seeing like a third of
Correct.
that truck?
Correct. The rest of that trailer is inside the building.
One thing I was still kind of confused on, could you explain, I know the 3 trucks were side by side, but where the 3 people were injured in proximity to the 3 trucks when it went down?
The one was the driver of the vehicle. He sensed it was coming and got to the front of it. He had minor injuries. The most severe injured was the driver of the vehicle next to it. And then he got sprayed with products, so he sustained burns. And I'm not quite sure what the third one was, but he was an employee of Royal Chemical.
And the other 2, were they employees?
No, they were truck drivers.
Pronounce the chemical again?
Sodium hydroxide.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to move up, you can see that back there.
So the keys there, which I think
Oh, okay.
everybody is wondering and everybody is curious about when you hear sodium hydroxide has been released to the ground, into the surrounding areas, into the building, did not get into the waterways. The air is safe. 2 major things there. Now, as for those individuals, you did hear them say how serious in nature this entire thing is, and now we are getting a very clear view of exactly what this looks like as of right now. The cleanup process still a little bit away here. The investigation is needed. They'll need to make sure that everything is closed off, contained, before then ultimately doing the full cleanup process. But the damage is pretty widespread, as you can all see. Look at that right there on the left-hand side. That is that tanker that's split in half of it ending up outside, the other half ending up inside, and then look at the damage that was done there to that other tanker as well. Again, sodium hydroxide is what was released as a result of this. 3 people sent to the hospital. One of them, at least according to police, was in, and I quote, with life-threatening injuries. Again, this is Royal Chemical in Macedonia. You can see the Etchberger trucking logo there as we close in more and show you what it looks like on those surrounding cars. They said that the road's going to be opening up at some point in the future, but it does not seem to be imminent as of right now. Of course, when or if that does happen, we will alert you as soon as possible. You can see the workers on the left-hand side. If they're getting that close, that means the scene is slowly starting to clear up itself. But yeah, I mean, look at the distance between where that crash happened in the background and then that piece of metal in the middle of that. That shows you just how wide this is and just how big that explosion was. You can also hear in the background there as trucks are still working and cleaning as a train, it seems to go by in the background of that. Again, this is Macedonia. You can see the spray that was used there. That seems to be part of the cleanup as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I'd taken notes on. Let's see here. So I would like to also, I guess, clarify some things. Now, earlier when this initially happened, Fire Chief Ripley with Macedonia had said that some of the chemicals got into nearby streams and they're working to contain the spill. As you just heard, that's not true. Did not get into the waterways is what they said. So either that is because they cleaned it up or because it just didn't actually get to that point. So that is a big description that we need to emphasize there. As you can see on some of those cars, that's got to be tough if you're a worker having to go out there and seeing chemicals sprayed on all of them. In total, there's 5 Royal Chemical plants in the United States. This is the only one that is in Ohio. The response to this was pretty rapid, and the cleanup has been pretty rapid. But again, we're anticipating it's going to take some time there. I mean, look at what that did to that car. Like stripping the paint. Because you look at the top parts of that, it does seem like part of the paint's almost being stripped. If that's the case, that's a lot of work for a lot of car owners there. The explosion happened while workers were in the process of loading a truck. Again, outside of the building, that truck was full of that chemical, sodium hydroxide, which is what you were seeing that had sprayed across, or at least been contained across many of the cars in that area. All right, they look like they are moving around. We are going to end our digital stream there then. Of course, we will have much more on this and other stories of the day today on 19 News. Right now it is almost 5 o'clock, so we have another hour and a half or so of our coverage over on CBS. For now, I'm Jeff Sloss with 19 News. Have a great day and a great night. Much more to come, both on air and online.
19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for channel 1035.